What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I just want to let you know I watched a documentary about a UK Brit who's a little bit cooler than J.K. Rowling. This is Knockout Blonde, the Kellie Maloney story. I was offered an advanced screening of this, and I took it because it's important for films like this to be seen and heard and reviewed. It does not have audio description. It didn't on my screener, but it's also not listed on streaming services as dropping with audio description. It's probably just flying a little too under the radar. It's also a documentary, so I think that happens a lot more with documentaries. Uh, and yeah, it does kind of sting a little bit less because when I think about the format of a documentary, the more that people just use it as sort of like a talking head thing, bouncing back and forth. How many times do we have to really stop and describe something? What are the breaks? Where do we have them? I'm not saying we shouldn't do audio description, but of the genres, of all of the genres out there that you could, if you had to struggle without audio description, there are a lot of documentaries that are just people talking about something for an extended period of time. And there are also plenty of nature documentaries or plenty of sort of like voyeuristic documentaries that take sort of a hands-off approach, and they don't want to talk to anybody, you know, just a cameraman walking in and seeing what's going on. So that's not saying for the genre as a whole. However, this documentary is basically Kellie telling her life story as a transgender boxing promoter, uh, and how that came to be. Originally known as Frank Maloney, um, she's now Kellie and has been Kellie for officially for I believe 11 years. I found that she transitioned in 2014, so it took her a while, and she lived in fear of constantly being found out, uh, thinking, because of the stigma that around being transgender, especially I think when you're in the UK and you have somebody like J.K. Rowling who just won't shut up. Like she means different things in other countries, but like over there, I would imagine it's sort of like having your own unique celebrity. Like if I don't know, Shonda Rhimes was over here just spouting some nonsense, I think like to other countries they'd be like, well, we know who she is. We watch Bridgerton or Grey's Anatomy or whatever, but I, you're still impacted by it, but there's something about the community from which she represents in the uh, place where she grew up and raised, born, all that kind of stuff, spouting bullshit. So um, I think it's brave for Kellie to have made that choice late in life because it's such a huge change later on in life to just, but also at the end you're just like, am I just gonna finish out? I'm like this unhappy, depressed. So there's something to be said for that too, in taking the leap and finally making the right decision for yourself and for your own mental health, and uh, making it public and putting up with all the bullshit for years and having to live in fear and listen to what other people have to say about other people who are like you. Um, you know, it's, I mean, it kind of happens just in general in the LGBTQ community, because we don't all just walk out at birth and be like, gay, trans, like right out of the womb. So there are like little microaggressions throughout life where we see the people around us making comments about other people who are in, uh, you know, these different letters of the alphabet. And uh, to see that identification kind of puts you a little bit hesitant to want to step forward and be like, but that's me too, but that is also me. Like, I also am an LGBTQ film critic. I always say I'm a blind film critic because there actually are more LGBTQ film critics than there are blind film critics. I'm mostly here to talk about the from things from the blind film perspective, but when I have an opportunity to review something like Knockout Blonde, I feel it's important because there is this other part of me that represents this other marginalized community. Somehow I'm even further marginalized. Like I'm in some sort of weird hellscape Venn diagram of of being double marginalized. But I just imagine if I mean, I could marginalize myself even more. I'm sure I could step into some sort of like generator and take away my white privilege and all those kind of things, and I would just be the most somehow just the most marginalized person on earth. But um, for Kelly to open up about her story in this, I thought it was really impactful. I thought it was really good, and I like the way the documentary is cut and edited too. The way the story is told, it really supports Kelly's story, and it's not afraid to talk about her as Frank, and to address the fact that Frank was well known for things, and Frank had a career, and Frank was did all these things. You know that worked as worked with Lennox Lewis, and was known in the boxing world, and because of that level of fame, and they play with footage of all these like broadcast announcers and radio hosts and newscasters saying the name, uh, that Frank Maloney, that it's it would be it's like when somebody like Caitlyn Jenner transitions. It's like a lot of people knew Bruce Jenner, and then now we have Caitlyn Jenner. It's terrible representation, but I couldn't think of anything better in the moment. Uh, I do not like the things that Caitlyn stands for. I think it's weird that she stands against everything that she is. But so it's a little bit different, I think, when you're in the spotlight and you transition. I should have gone with Elliot Page, uh, but it's a different transition. It's the other direction. Elliot Page is a much more positive role model. I apologize. I forgot about Elliot. Elliot Page is a much more positive role model. So, but yeah, when you're out there and people have a preconceived notion about who you are, and there's a little bit of, sometimes there can be like a ramification of things. You've won awards in certain categories, or you like, where do you fit in? Who do you train now? Who do you manage? Who do you promote? Do you switch over to, things that they didn't even really get into, because I wanted to know, sort of like, did Kelly start managing female boxers? Did she become sort of promoting? Did she switch it up? Or are men still comfortable with her managing them? And what is that like, for anything that she does now? Or does that whole world just sort of, she persona non grata, but now she's happy because she's living her truth? So there's a little bit sort of at the end where, just because I know I look like somebody who follows sports, but I don't. I'm passively aware of the biggest names in all the sports. I'm probably most familiar with basketball, but it's all downstream from there. Otherwise, like I can tell you some team names. Like, I thrive on pop culture, which means I have to know, where some of these teams are. I'm generally aware of what sport they play. Couldn't tell you who was on most of the teams. Every once in a while, there's somebody who just breaks through out of a sport, and it becomes impossible for you to not know who they are. Like Wayne Gretzky in hockey. I don't think I've ever watched a hockey game. My hockey experience is limited to the Mighty Ducks. Like, that's it. I've never, in any sort of sustainable fashion, ever watched hockey. I've never played like a hockey video game. I don't remember doing anything hockey related, but I know who Wayne Gretzky is. So with boxing, it's like, yeah, I've never really watched a fight, but I know who Muhammad Ali is, Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis. I know who these people are. And but I didn't know who Frank Maloney was. So to me, this was being introduced to somebody and being told their past and their history and how they worked into a sport, and then how that made them made it a little bit difficult for them to uh, jump into their truth, perhaps more so than if they were just working a 9 to 5 somewhere, in an office. And then it was just all about, just letting the family know. But there was this extra level of public scrutiny that's on top of it. And now we live in 2025 when it's used as like a dog whistle to bring out the worst in everybody and to get people to align with political causes that because it's being used as like a boogeyman, because we can't just let people live their lives like they're just fucking human, and we can't just be like, oh yeah, okay. Oh, like, how does this directly affect people? That's what I never understand with people who are just like, I can't deal with it. It's like, you can't do. Are you bad at relearning names? I'm bad with names in general. Like, I kind of need to be told them a couple of times, which is why sometimes when I do a review, I don't know who's in the cast. Also, never underestimate the power of facial recognition. It fucking sucks, man. Like, that was one of the things transitioning. It's like, being able to recognize somebody and associate and put a name to a face is really undervalued from a sighted perspective. It's not something that you realize until you don't have it anymore. And then you're like, oh shit, now I have to put a name to a voice? But that voice sounds like that voice. And those two people sound exactly the same. So a lot of times I run into people who sound, I'm like, it's one of these people, but I don't know which one. I'm gonna have to ask. You know, this is either Jenna or Julie. I don't know which one. Um, yeah, and it becomes a little. That's one of the reasons why audio description helps too. Is when I'm being inundated with a whole bunch of people who I don't know who you are, uh, and I have to follow your voices. Even in documentary format, it helps because it reminds me we're going back to that person. While yes, I followed Kelly. Kelly's voice is predominant in the movie. It's like 75% Kelly speaking, 25% everyone else. So that was easy. She has multiple kids. Could not tell you which one was speaking at any given time. I didn't know what their couldn't follow what their names were. I don't know who was who. Uh, and I don't. It could have been. I don't even know how many there were. I think there are 3, but I don't know that that's 100% for sure. So, yeah, it is such an undervalued thing. I think the society people have that they just being able to put, they have this whole TV series, Brilliant Minds, about this guy who's like face blind and he just can't remember anybody by face. And I'm like, I get that, but at the same time, you can recognize a few people by voice. There's some people who just have distinctly unique voices, or you hear somebody so many times that you remember the voice. So it's not impossible. I don't walk around through my life not knowing like family members. But in a talking head documentary, the more people you put into the documentary, the harder it is to follow. Luckily, this is a little bit more like earlier this year, I watched Janice Ian Breaking Silence. And that's like mostly Janice speaking. It is a couple other people, but it's like when the other people come in, I'm like, I don't know who you are. I'm having a real hard time. But when we go back to Janice, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I got you. You're doing most of the talking. And so here, Kelly's doing most of the talking. So I was able to follow and know when it was Kelly versus when it was someone else, not Kelly. So that's kind of one of the downsides of being blind and going into this. But, you know, I advocate heavily for audio description for international films. I advocate heavily for just in general the content. Like, not only do I think it benefits us to watch films from perspectives that are not ours, while I identify as gay, but I'm not trans, so I don't. it's not my experience. I did not transition, so I don't know what this is like. So it is still listening to somebody else tell me what their experience was like, and it still feels like I am getting that perspective. I think sometimes when all you do is you hear the same perspective over and over, that's what creates a J.K. Rowling. That's what creates these things when people grow up in a vacuum and all you hear is nothing but hate and nothing but one opinion the whole time. If you don't diversify and listen to other people's stories and hear the human realization in what it is that they're saying, that they just felt this way forever, that they always felt this way, but they never knew how to express it. They didn't even have a name for it. But we're still at a point where if somebody's old enough and they're saying like, well, when I was a kid, they didn't really know. For me, I grew up in the Ozarks. I didn't have gay representation until it kind of started hitting like mainstream film, and then I started being able to watch things like The Birdcage and Tu Wong Fu and Will and Grace in like the mid '90s. That was like the first time when I was like, "What is this?" And it kind of made sense. Then it started connecting dots for me. But if the representation isn't there, you don't even know what it is that you're feeling, and you're pretty certain that everyone else would hate you if you told them. Like you're getting the vibe that you're out of the ordinary. So I think Kelly expresses that a lot in Knockout Blonde. I think that feeling of being an alien, sort of not just in your own body, but in and around you all the time, just feeling like you're out of place and not being able to tell anybody about it, and just kind of just trying to mimic everything around you, and marrying a wife and having kids and continuing to just do what you do, just one foot in front of the other every single day until such time where it's just like, I think you, I think the thing is, while it is brave also to do it late in life, it's also like out of necessity, because at a certain point it's like you're never going to get to achieve that thing. It's like somebody reaching a breaking point and realizing, I always wanted to be a parent but I never got to be one, or I always wanted to get married and never did. I always wanted to do this thing, and sometimes it's just labeled as a midlife crisis. And you could say that, but it's also at some stages you just kind of realize time is not on your side anymore. And if you're going to do something, you need to do it. So the fact that Kelly transitioned when she was 60 is not necessarily the most shocking revelation in the world. I'm sure it was to those around her who express it in film and express it honestly. I mean, I wasn't. I don't know that the ex-wife is necessarily the most uh, positive trans ally in terms of the way that she speaks about the incident and sort of removing Kelly from the situation. When Kelly says, "I'm Kelly," I, I, I'm a woman, and it, I, I, I don't know that that's all the best representation, but also she agreed to do this, and I think this is uh, uh, the authorized documentary. So I think this is also Kelly saying this is part of my story, and sometimes it isn't perfect. Sometimes it's not all glitter and gold, and sometimes there's some bumps in the road. There's some warts. There's some things that weren't great, weren't great points. We don't always do everything right. We don't always say everything right. We don't always get through things. So the fact that everybody in the family wasn't instantly just like, oh my God, yes, yes. I didn't expect that, like it's it's a big thing to know somebody for 60 years, or however long you've known them. I guess for like the daughters would be for however old they are at any given time. So it's tough for them to think about one thing as being like a constant and like never changing, and then it changes. But I thought the kids were pretty cool. Like one of them immediately just uses the right pronouns, just immediately in the interview is talking about like the past, but also immediately first pronoun used was she. And I caught it and I was like, thank you. It was nice. It was delightful. So, I mean, I think there's some things where you have to talk about. I have to acknowledge that Kelly was frank at some point, and to talk about the past of that history and how they grew up, and the film addresses that part of it. So, but at the same time, she's Kelly. That's who she is. That's who she always was, and she just finally is saying that I feel like I'm myself now. But there are a whole bunch of people who would do anything to stop that, even though she's not trying to do anything. Like this isn't war. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an incredibly personal thing. There are a whole bunch of people who would say, that they don't want to be legislated, like as an individual, that they want their own individual rights to like, don't touch my guns, right? Don't my house, my rules. What can't, if it's your body, your choice, why, like why do these things affect no one? She's not hurting anybody by being transgender, but there's a whole world of people out there that believe that she is inherently hurting them, or they're worried about her prospect in heaven. And it's like, do you worry about everybody's? Do you just go around the world worrying about everybody's, or do you just worry about like certain people? Is it like tangential? Because we got a lot of problems. So there's like some homeless people on the street over there that could probably use some Jesus in terms of, food and water and shelter and all that kind of thing. But, pick your battles, I guess, is what they're saying, like I can't help those people, but I can yell at this transgender woman for an extended period of time and make her feel like shit. Uh, yeah, our world is, we're doing great. We, we're killing it. I'm not sure this is a movie review anymore. Um, yeah, I like Knock on Blonde. Uh, it's not necessarily my favorite documentary of the year, but this also, I hate to say it, yeah. This also was the year that I got Deaf President Now, and I got disability representation on like a high level scale. So I really don't know. I don't know what is going to beat that, because I think we're all looking for our own representation at times, and I think for a lot of people, especially the trans community, I think something like this is this is immediately going to hit with people, and it's going to feel like representation. It's going to feel like, yes, we need this. Thank you so much. And while I love this documentary from an LGBTQ perspective, I love a documentary also that puts disability rights center stage at a time when we're also having a real hard time understanding what the prospect of that is as well, and trying to take away as much as we can here in America. So a lot of things going on. I wish I could just review this movie outside of a political climate, but the reality is we can't. The reality is films like this no longer exist outside of a political climate. They should be able to. If some random person just wants to do a documentary about their life and they're not trans, they get to exist outside of out of the political spectrum. You know, um, they're like, I don't, I, still the Michael J. Fox story, right? What's the politicizing of that? You know, is there like an anti-Parkinson's? Is there like something pro Parkinson's? Like, if you're red, then you're on one side, and if you're blue, then you're on the other. We're divided on Parkinson's. It's like I don't think that documentary could be possibly be politicized. So there's some things where it's just like one person can tell their story without it being a part of a movement, or being put at the center stage of a movement, or being uh, representative of, speaking for, important to, inspirational, and all those kind of things. Some people can just tell their story and put it on camera. So Kelly, unfortunately, everywhere she goes, or fortunately, is an icon. is an inspiration, is a monster, is whatever that person sees at the end of the day, is whatever that person who looks at Kelly. And it's sad that there are people who look out and see that last thing. They're sad that people that that's all that they see. That's all that they hear, and they don't want to know anything else. They see one thing and they're out. So uh this is like J.K. Rowling would see this and just go no, and wouldn't, I don't even think would sit and listen to the story. I don't think would ever sit down and listen, be willing to hear Kelly out about her life and experience. But what I heard was somebody who was struggling, who, by all accounts, the world would say, you know, presenting extremely masculine, living in a masculine world, doing the most masculine thing, all the time, coming from growing up Irish and talking about how they weren't even allowed to do housework, coming out of this community where it does nothing but propagate the idea of of sort of toxic masculinity, almost to that level. I mean, you can still be a good person, but it's just like it's just bleeding that level of high. This isn't somebody who grew up in theater or grew up, in and around like a loving, caring, peace, love, and harmony environment. Or this isn't somebody who grew up. No, this is somebody who, yeah, and still every moment of every day knew that they were a woman, and it never changed. And they reached their point and they said, I have to do this, and I have to do this for me or I'm going to die. And that is so much of what transgender stories are, is if I don't do this, I don't have a future. I don't see a future for myself. So big love and kudos to Kelly for being willing to share her story with the world in 2025 of all times. It's like it's needed at the same time. There's something about being a boxing, right? And being willing to take the punches. And Kelly standing up. It's not, when they made the documentary, obviously things were still not great in the trans community. It's not like J.K. Rowling did just wake up and become a TERF yesterday. That wasn't a thing. So you have to know when you put that out there, when you put that story out there. And I'm sure that Kelly's been living with it passively, even when not talking to the news, even not when putting themselves out there, with some transphobia. So when you're willing to put your story out there, that there's going to be this reaction. The movie hasn't even released and has like a 5 point something on IMDb, which is baffling to me because I got an advanced screening. I'm like, where are these people? And how does this movie have a 5? It doesn't even have the critics ratings. And it's like, if people feel compelled to go on there and just downvote it, then they're going to do it, whether they saw the movie or not. They know what it's about, and they're like, no, kill it with fire. And that's so disappointing. So if you have a chance to check out Knockout Blonde, I think you should. I pretty much was able to get this because, again, it's a talking head documentary. So if you're surprised that I'm grading it instead of saying unwatchable due to lack of audio description, it has a lot less to do with the representation. I'm not just doing it because it's an LGBTQ documentary or because it was an advanced screening or anything like that. Legitimately, it's people talking to me for an extended period of time. This could have been a podcast almost. I mean, I know it has a visual element to it, and there are things that they shot and they show you, but there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of, this is my life, let me tell you the story. And I really feel like I got it. And I mean, I don't think the grade that I'm going to give it would change. I don't know how it would change. I would love to see audio description always and accessibility always, because those things matter, which is why I'm here. But at the same time, I can't act like every single thing is just painstakingly at the same level of just impossible to understand or impossible to follow. This is Kelly telling you her story, and I'm here for it. I'm going to give Knockout Blonde, the Kellie Maloney story, an A. I have no reason not to. I mean, there really isn't anything that I that turn me off. I want more. You know, I could have heard more, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. I don't think leaving a movie going, I could have stayed there for 10 more minutes. You know, I don't think that's a bad thing. So, I guess some people would. They'd be like, "Oh, this film was 10 minutes too short." I don't see that as a negative. You know, when you're enjoying an experience, you go on a ride at a theme park and you're like, "Ah, God, I wish I was on that ride longer. Let's go on it again." Right? That's kind of what it is. You just go on the ride again. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And hopefully you check this out on video on demand. I'll see you guys on the other side.